各位媒体
Friends of the media, good afternoon. Welcome to the press conference of the Joint Prevention and Control Mechanism of the State Council. Today we will focus on the stabilization and expansion of auto consumptions in face of COVID-19 response. We have with us DDG Cai Ronghua from the Industry Development Department of NDRC, DG Sun Guangqi from the Economic Development Department of Ministry of Finance, DDG Wu Xianfeng from the Atmosphere Department of Ministry of Ecology and Environment, and the head of the Consumption Promotion Department, Mr. Wang Bin from the Ministry of Commerce. They will focus on infrastructure development, minimization of emissions and pollution, and cross-regional distribution. And we'll take questions from the floor. Some updates on the epidemic. In the 24 hours of April the 8th, according to reports from provinces, cities, and Xinjiang Production Construction Corp, new confirmed cases 63, including 61 imported cases. 2 were domestic. 9 from Shanghai, 40 in Heilongjiang, Tianjin, Zhejiang, Anhui, Guangdong had 1 imported case respectively. 2 were domestic cases, which were in Guangdong. New deaths 2, both were Hubei cases. New suspected cases 17, including 16 imported cases and 1 domestic suspected case in Heilongjiang province. On the day, newly cured and discharged from hospitals 91 cases. Close contacts that were removed from medical observation 1,848. Severe cases were reduced by 13. Some information on the imported cases. Remaining confirmed cases of importation 729, including 31 severe cases. Remaining suspected cases 71. Cumulatively confirmed cases 1,103. Cumulatively cured and discharged from hospitals 374. No death case among imported cases as of 24 o'clock April the 8th. According to reports from provinces, cities, and Xinjiang Production Construction Corp, remaining confirmed cases 1,160, including 176 severe cases. Cumulatively cured and discharged from hospitals 77,370. Cumulative deaths 3,335. Cumulatively reported confirmed cases 81,865. Remaining suspected cases 73. Cumulatively traced close contacts numbered 716,889. Close contacts that remained under medical observation 12,510. In Hubei province, there was no new confirmed case, no new or remaining suspected cases in the province. Newly cured and discharged from hospitals 45. New deaths 2, both were Wuhan cases. Remaining confirmed cases in the province 401, including 398 cases in Wuhan. Severe cases were 137, including 135 in Wuhan. Cumulatively cured and discharged from hospitals 64,187, including 47,036 in Wuhan. Cumulative reported death cases 3,215, including 2,574 deaths in Wuhan. Cumulatively confirmed cases 67,803, including 50,008 confirmed cases in Wuhan. According to provinces, cities, and Xinjiang Production and Construction Corp's reports, new asymptomatic cases 56, including 28 imported asymptomatic cases, and on the day, 15 were transferred to the category of confirmed cases or were imported cases. 32 were removed from medical observation, including 7 from imported cases. Those that remain under medical observation as asymptomatic cases, 1,104, including 364 imported asymptomatic cases from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. Cumulatively reported confirmed cases 1,384, including 960 in Hong Kong SAR, 45 cases in Macau SAR, and 379 in the Taiwan region. Some of our neighboring countries have seen a rapid increase of confirmed cases, and there has been a clear increase of imported cases. We need to have rigorous screening measures on the inbound travelers and pursue at our best to reduce those related cases. 17 provinces have reported asymptomatic cases up till now, 280 asymptomatic cases. We must follow standards, improve identification, reporting, and management so as to ensure precise measures are adopted in the prevention and control. Now we'd like to take questions from the floor. Please ask questions around today's topic, and please identify yourself before you address your question. Journalist from the first row on the right side. Thank you. With the Economic Daily, since 2018, production and sales of autos have seen consecutive decrease. Does it mean that the consumption potential is already limited? What is government's view on the future forecast of the auto market? I'd like to ask DDG Cai Ronghua from NDRC to take the question. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your concern in the auto industry development in China. If we look at the history of auto industry development in China, we found that the industry has already experienced a faster growth stage and has shifted from the quantity focus to the quality improvement. However, the overall trend of positive development remains unchanged. There is still a big market potential for its future development. In the 1990s, autos found their ways into households. In China, the annual production and sales increased from the original less than 1 million till the current 28 million plus for several consecutive years. That has been number 1 in the world. The national car ownership was 2.61 million for per 1,000 people. The ownership has increased from the less than 10 to the 180 up to the world average. Since the year 2018, just as you have rightly pointed out, there has been the consecutive changes in our production and sales of auto, but it has been inconsistent with the development pattern of the industry. The overall trend is still positive. For developed countries, per 10,000 people's car ownership is 500 to 800. In light of the demographic structures, the resources difference, and the country context specifics, in the future, as the household income increases, consumption structure improves, and urbanization accelerates, per 1,000 Chinese ownership of cars still see a big potential room for further improvement. As the car ownership increases, the yearly replacement consumption may increase from the current 9 million to above 20 million. Meanwhile, the Tier 3 or lower cities will have a gradually released consumption needs for autos, which may constitute a new driver for the auto market development. In face of these possible changes, the Chinese government has adopted an array of measures to stabilize consumption of vehicles, to create a sound environment of consumption and release the full potential of auto consumption and mitigate the impacts on the industry. We've also guided the auto industry to focus on quality, focus the development and shift to EVs and the smart vehicles.
So overall, despite the major impact caused by the pandemic and the downward trend in terms of automobile consumption, we believe such trend is just a temporary trend, and it will not affect the overall direction of development. In the medium and the long term, we would see a fairly stable automobile consumption market. Thank you. Let's continue. On the left, on the front row, the first gentleman reporter, please. Thank you. With Phoenix TV, recently there were some media reports that the national energy consumption standard will be postponed because of the pandemic. Is that true? We will have DG Wu to take the question. Thank you for your concern about the national standard for emission. For years, these emission standards have facilitated the consumption and also the environmental treatment. In the year 2006, the emission standard was in the year 2016, the number 6 emission standard was released, requesting that starting from this year, the emission should be up to this standard. Now, the stakeholders are making appropriate changes to satisfy the requirement. Now, 16 provinces and municipalities, including Beijing and Shanghai, have already applied the latest standard. Now, we can see that for the new models of automobiles, their emission is improving greatly, and the new emission standard has been widely received by the market and by the consumers. The pandemic is affecting the consumption and the market. On the one hand, we can find the pandemic has affected the supply of the parts of automobiles, and also we can find the emission standard will have a major impact or consequence concerning the particles emitted from the automobiles. As you know, Hubei province, the epicenter of the pandemic in China, is also a major manufacturing base for automobiles. And also the international spread of the pandemic has affected the Chinese automobile manufacturing and consumption. That's why we plan to postpone the nationwide application of the emission standard. Specifically, we are going to postpone the deadline to change to this emission standard, and please stay tuned until we give you the latest information. Okay, on the right, on the second row. Thank you. With CCTV. My question is, we found that in January and February this year, the consumption of automobiles has been dropped by 42%. Now the State Council is working on new policy measures. Will there be push forward for the consumption in the market? We will have DG Wang to take the question. Thank you for your question. In the year 2019, the sales of vehicles dropped by 8.2%, and the COVID-19 has further worsened the situation. At the moment, the international spread of COVID-19 inevitably has caused a negative impact on the import and the consumption of the vehicles. That's why the State Council, especially the executive meeting of the State Council, has discussed this issue, and we try to encourage the consumption so that the economy can be recovered. Now we can see the business operation is recovering, and in the latter half of March, we found that the consumption in the vehicle market is up by 2.9%, and according to data from the China Automobile Circulation Association, the March data is 37 percentage points higher than that of February. China is the largest automobile and new energy vehicle producer and consumer. We are also one of the most important providers of the spare parts for vehicles. Over the years, we can find 4 major features. The first is constant expanding scale. For 11 years in a row, China's consumption of automobiles has ranked the top in the world. In the year 2020, the ownership is expected to exceed that of the United States, and also in rural areas, especially for the rural purpose vehicles, we can find the growth is faster than that in urban areas. Also, we can find the market share of the high-end, mid and high-end vehicles is expanding. For example, for SUVs, it is 1.5 percentage point higher than that of last year. And for new energy vehicles, it represents over 50% of the global sales. Affected by many factors, for 2 years in a row, the Chinese vehicle consumption has dropped. This shows that we are now in a plateau period where we should have some adjustment. This does not mean that the vehicle consumption will continue to drop, as it has not reached the ceiling yet. We believe that with the large population base and the big market potential, the vehicle ownership per 1,000 has just exceeded that of the world average, and there's still a big gap between the current ownership and the ownership of the developed countries. We've already identified the future directions for the automobile markets and the consumptions. We will continue to push forward the vehicle consumption to realize the smart development and the green development. So we will consider the various factors, and the factors like the public transportation and the resource capacity. We believe that China's automobile consumption still enjoys a very large potential. Okay, let's continue. On the left, on the second row, the second lady reporter, please. Thank you. With Xinmin Evening News, the executive meeting of the State Council clearly identifies that the procurement tax will be postponed for 2 years. Could you please elaborate on that? Thank you. We will have DG Sun to take the question. According to the overall arrangement, starting from 2010, we have such taxation exemption, and then there's another taxation exemption policy being effective starting from 2014. These 2 policies were expected to be expired by the end of this year. However, we can see that for China's current situation, like the bottlenecks in the automobile industrial development, to facilitate the development, on March the 31st, the executive meeting of the State Council it is decided that the two preferential policies will be extended for another 2 years out of the following considerations.
First, these policies are meant to improve the high-quality development of a new energy industry which started early and had a good opening, but now there are some real difficulties. The manufacturing cost of NEVs are still high, which cannot compete on the level playing field with traditional gasoline-powered vehicles. Therefore, subsidies and preferential tax policies are needed to consolidate the hard-won achievements and to improve their comprehensive competitiveness. If we look at the international trend of development, electric vehicles represent a future trend for upgrading. In European and American advanced countries, the governments have improved their favorable policies for NEVs. It is necessary for us to extend the favorable fiscal policies to consolidate the sound momentum of development and improve its competitive edge. And besides, these policies are also to set off the impact from COVID-19, which has been a major impact. In the first 2 months of the year, the production and sales of NEVs have seen an decrease of 63.8% and 59.5% respectively. The extension of favorable fiscal policies can improve and drive the auto consumption, set off the impact from COVID-19, and support relevant industry and businesses to accelerate resumption of business. Down the road, Ministry of Finance will collaborate with other departments and ministries, follow the procedures to adopt subsidy and purchase tax adjustments, stabilize market expectations, and create favorable conditions to release the market needs. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the fourth row on the right side. Thank you. With CGTN, the removal of the second-hand vehicle purchase restrictions have called attention from around the society. Is that consistent across the country? What are the measures adopted by Ministry of Commerce to promote cross-region distribution of second-hand vehicles? I'd like to ask Mr. Wang Bin to take the question. Thank you for your question. The distribution and circulation of a second-hand vehicle constitutes a very important linchpin. The prosperity in second-hand vehicle can revitalize the entire market and drive auto consumption. As the auto ownership in China keeps increasing, there has been rapid development of the second-hand vehicles. In 2019, the total transaction was 11 million plus, and YOY increase of 3.8%. The transaction value was almost 1 trillion RMB. However, impacted by multiple factors, the second-hand vehicle development is still laggard in China. Compared with developed countries, the second-hand vehicle transaction to ownership percentage is relatively low, and the transaction to new car ownership is only 1/3 that of developed countries. Based on this calculation, the transaction of second-hand vehicle theoretical number might be 40 million, which promises a big potential of development. The State Council and the Party Central Committee attach great importance to the development of second-hand vehicle. For over the years, there have been multiple deployment of policies to relax the purchase restrictions. Apart from the Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei province, Po River Delta and Yangtze River Delta, where the pollution issue is more to be considered, in other places, second-hand vehicles can be transacted within the province. Apart from these provinces under stricter control of atmospheric pollution prevention, 25 provinces have gradually relaxed the purchase restrictions. benefited from this favorable policy, there has been a tangible vigor in the second-hand vehicle. In 2019, we've found an increase of 8.7 percentage points in terms of cross-regional distribution of second-hand vehicles. Minus 0.5% of the purchase tax means a milestone development of second-hand vehicle, which can promote the scale of economy and the branding of the second-hand vehicle companies, thus promoting an even greater market potential for new car consumption. Down the road, we'll further implement the deployment of the central government, collaborate with other ministries and departments, and conduct good jobs in the following aspects. First, we will continue to implement the policies to relax the purchase restrictions and promote its free flow. Second, implement the VAT favorable tax and standardize the healthy development of the industry. Third, promote its exportation, expand market development. Fourth, make convenience for the cross-region registration of second vehicles to ensure greater prosperity in the second-hand vehicle market. Thank you. Next question, journalist from the right side on the third row. With Hong Kong-China review, what are the favorable policies to support the charging infrastructure for NEVs? I'd like to ask DG Sun Guangqi to take the question. Thank you for your concern and thank you for your question. The charging infrastructure is an integral part of NEV industry development. Ministry of Finance has been collaborating with other relevant departments to promote the development of charging infrastructure. In particular, we use rewards in replacement of subsidies. The local governments and the relevant enterprises are the entities to develop charging infrastructures. So starting from 2004, the central finance has been providing rewards to localities, which can then be holistically planned by local finances. Up till now, we have distributed 4.5 billion as rewards to local governments. We've also shaped the co-development by central and local governments. From the very beginning, our policy was targeted at the promotion of purchase, and later the central government was in charge of the purchasing of the infrastructure raw materials, and the local government will be in charge of the development of these charging infrastructures. Some of the money was transferred to the development of the charging piles and the supportive equipment. These policies have yielded achievements. By the end of 2019, we have 1.2 million charging piles across China. However, the charging infrastructure is still a weakness for us. The EV's ownership was already 3.8 million, but we only have 1.2 million charging piles. Therefore, there is still a shortfall. So we will continue to study to improve the rewarding system, incentivize the local government to accelerate the development of charging piles, to shift the situation where there are more EVs than the number of charging piles, thus creating a sound environment for promotion of EV consumption. Next question, please. Thank you. China Education TV. Cities, including Beijing, haven't started with the transportation restriction measures. As businesses are resuming their operation, will there be future pressure on the environmental protection? What will be the responding measures adopted by Ministry of Ecology and Environment? DDG Wu Xianfeng is taking the question. That's a great question. In the mid and the later half of February, influenced by the Spring Festival break and the COVID-19 response, there has been major decrease of cargo freight by 77% and passenger transportation by 39%, and emission has decreased by 50% YOY. If we look at the atmospheric quality monitoring, the NO2 has decreased by 30% in terms of its concentration. Starting from the later half of February, business resumption gradually came into place. The traffic flow is back to the normal level.
For the pollutants discharge, it has also returned to the normal level. So indeed, in terms of the air pollution, it is a big challenge. However, on the other hand, in order to reduce the air pollution, the Ministry of Ecology and Environment is going to do the following things to win the battle against air pollution. And we have it as the blue sky war. So we will guide more road traffic to railway traffic. And we will strengthen regulation, improve the quality of the gases or the petrol. And also we will further phase out the outdated models starting from 2003. We've already phased out 27 million such vehicles, and this year, together with the Ministry of Transportation and the Ministry of Finance, we will push forward the 1 million outdated diesel cars or vehicles. Though they only account for a small percentage of the total ownership, they will contribute to 30% of the air pollution and over 50% of the particle emission. So we are confident that the phase-out of such vehicles will contribute to the environment. Furthermore, we are promoting the application of the new energy vehicles like in public transportation. Okay, let's continue. On the left, on the third row, the third lady reporter, please. Thank you. The National Business News, we found that it is quite an early initiative among all the sectors to stabilize and expand the automobile consumption. And why is that? We will have E.G. Cai to take your question. Thank you for your question. The country attaches great importance to the development of the automobiles. At this time point, we have this encouraging policy, right because the sector is of critical importance, and also we need the strong incentives to push forward consumption and restore the normal operation and production in the automobile sector. This sector is of critical importance to the national economy. In terms of the supply, the industrial chain of automobiles is quite long, and there are a lot of stakeholders in this industrial chain. In terms of the added value, the sector accounts for 7% of the total industrial value added. And for example, the automobile sector accounts for more than 10% of the total industrial added value. So this is about the supply side. In terms of the consumption side, automobiles are important consumer goods. For products or consumer goods which are about 100,000 yuan, there is no product that can be comparable to automobiles in terms of the overall scale. So the automobile consumption accounts for a very high percentage, which is about 10% of the total consumption. In the year 2019, the overall retail's volume is 40 trillion RMB yuan, while automobile consumption represents 10% of the total. This year, because of the pandemic, the automobile consumption has been gravely affected, just as the previous speakers have mentioned. But as you know, in China, we enjoy a fairly diversified production structure. And as I have mentioned, the industrial chain of automobile is quite long, and therefore it have a great bearing on all the sectors. That's why the central government attaches great importance to the development of this particular sector. And the work recovery as well as the consumption recovery should be prioritized together in this sector. So NDRC, together with the government agencies who are present today, like the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Ecology, and the Ministry of Commerce, work together to come up with policy suggestions to encourage the automobile consumption. And this policy suggestion has been adopted by the State Council, and this is what you have found in the market and in the policies. I'm confident that with the policy being implemented, we will bring into full play our technical advantages in the new energy vehicles to address the remaining bottlenecks in the second-hand consumption and ensure the overall sound growth in the consumption. Okay. On the right, on the fifth row, the third gentleman reporter, please. Thank you. With the Dragon TV, my question is, how about the current work recovery and the sales of the automobiles? We will continue to have DG Cai to take your question. Thank you. Just as I have said, starting from the beginning of the year, affected by the pandemic, the automobile sector was gravely affected. However, with the joint efforts, this sector has witnessed a quick recovery. So we can expect the quick recovery back to normal as early as possible. Also, due to the pandemic, the intention of consumption in this market was suppressed. As previous speakers have mentioned, the consumption plan is being reduced. In the first 2 months compared with the same period last year, we can find the consumption drop by 40%. And if we take the February consumption and production to have the year-on-year comparison, we found that it was an 80% drop. So indeed, you can find the major impact caused by the pandemic on the automobile production and consumption. So the central government and the local governments adopted various measures to ensure the smooth flow of capital, personnel, and the raw materials, creating a favorable environment for the automobile sector. For the automobile companies, they are also making every effort to address the problems in the work recovery and production recovery. Now, the domestic pandemic control is trending towards a positive direction, and the overall work and operation is being recovered. So we found the return or the recovery of the consumption. The daily production volume is now up to 70% of the normal level. So it is fair to say that this is a fairly quick recovery. As for the dealers' purchase order, we can see that it is about 65% of the normal level. So we are witnessing the recovery of the production and the consumption. I know that journalists are also quite interested in the provision of the spare parts.
China is not only a big manufacturer of autos, but also a big manufacturer and exporter of the auto parts. Most of the parts can be procured in China, and a limited number of parts have to be reliant on importation. In response to the COVID-19, some of the overseas manufacturers of auto parts have suspended their businesses. However, according to our industry association's survey, the inventory for imported parts are plentiful, and previously there has been some orders. The imported parts are in the process of being exported to China. Therefore, the whole car manufacturing haven't been under weather because of the lack of imported parts. We'll continue to monitor closely the progress, but as favorable policies show their effects, as the life and work come back to normal tracks, the hampered or impeded consumption needs will gradually be unleashed. The consumption and the production cycle will come back to its healthy status, and we believe the whole industry will come back to its normal track. Thank you. Next question, journalist from the fifth row on the left side. With Carbon News. I also have a question on second-hand vehicle. Why does the government adopt the favorable policy for tax reduction on the purchase of a second-hand vehicle, and how big was the slash? I'd like to ask DG Sun Guangqi to take the question. Thank you for your concern and your question. The second-hand vehicle is intended to serve the individual consumers, and it's difficult to have VAT tax deduction. So we have previously adopted the 3% reduced by 2% on the tax collection of VAT tax collected on the second-hand vehicle dealers, because we know the second-hand vehicle market can drive the new car consumption. As we are alleviating the burden, the tax burden, we should also streamline the cumbersome procedures. From May the 1st of this year till the end of 2023, end of the year, the VAT tax will be 0.25% of the sales value of the second-hand vehicle dealers. So that means VAT tax was further slashed by 25%. Next question, please. Journalist from the right side. I also have a question related to second-hand vehicles. Some netizens say the trading market of second vehicle is in a mess. The information is not transparent. Once there are problems, the consumers find it difficult to defend their rights. We know there will be measures adopted by Ministry of Commerce to make the market prosperous again, but what will be the measures to standardize the practices? Which media are you with? Guangzhou Evening News. I'd like to ask Mr. Wang Bin to take the question. Thank you for your question. In recent years, there has been a rapid development of second-hand vehicle market, which has become a new shining point in the car industry. As you have rightly pointed out, there are indeed the substandard practices, and the information is not transparent, constraining the healthy development of the second-hand vehicle market. Ministry of Commerce attaches great importance to the development of the market, and we have been following the deployment of the State Council starting from the year 2017. We began to revise the management measures on second-hand vehicle distribution. We have a market-oriented approach, step up the protection of consumer rights, improve monitoring, and make the second-hand vehicle transaction more convenient. During the revisions of these management measures, Ministry of Commerce has been soliciting opinions on many occasions. The revision draft will soon be disclosed to solicit public opinion before its final adoption. As to the questions you've put forward, we will collaborate with the other departments and engage in the following 5 aspects of efforts. First, promote information transparency. Ask the dealers to verify the status. Work out the fact sheets of the second-hand vehicles. Second, strengthen and enhance the information transparency. Promote the dealers to disclose the service items, the service charges, and also the whistleblowing hotlines. Third, enhance the information inquiry service. Data service companies are encouraged to provide insurance, maintenance, recalling, information retrieval system. Fourth, strengthen the management of pronounced issues. Crack down on the new practices of changing or counterfeiting on the license plate numbers. Fifth, improve information sharing among different departments. Hold local government departments accountable. Ensure the consumers' rights and interests. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the second row on the right side. Thank you. With Wen Huibao, we know NEV's development cannot be separated from a fully fledged charging infrastructure. What is the status quo of charging infrastructure? What will be the measures that will be adopted to meet the charging needs of NEVs? I'd like to ask DDG Cai Ronghua to take the question. Thank you for your question. That's a great question. The NEV's development cannot be separated from the charging infrastructure. Over the years, China has been active in promoting charging infrastructure development. Now China has the world's biggest charging infrastructure. As DG Sun from Ministry of Finance has mentioned, as of the end of last year, we now have 1.22 million, including 700,000 private charging piles, covering a lot of cities. Also, it is in a very neat network, basically satisfying the needs of public transportation, logistics, and also private drivings. Last year, NEVs charged a total of 8 billion kilowatt hours. In the context of COVID-19 response, the charging infrastructure sector continued its support, in particular in the Wuhan. The charging infrastructure have provided support to the EVs that were transporting the medical supplies. Favorable policies have adopted to encourage the services. The business resumption is also great because 100% of those in the charging pile industry have resumed their business. The maintenance and operation of charging infrastructure have come back to its business as usual. Down the road, Chinese government will continue to improve our investment into the charging infrastructure. In combination with the renovation of old and worn-down communities, we will also build charging piles. Several vehicles will use the same charging pile in a community, and there will be other cooperative patterns adopted to deal with the difficulty of establishing charging piles in residents. Along the highways, urban and rural areas, we will move preemptively with the majority of faster charging and a minority of slow charging facilities. And we also encourage the use of batteries. We will also improve the research on the charging services to improve the technological content and make the charging services more smarter. Many of related projects have begun. According to the industry survey, it is expected that within the year we can have a total investment of 10 billion RMB with the new built charging piles of 200,000 public charging piles, and the new charging stations will have a new number of 48,000.
Let's continue on the left, on the front row, the third gentleman, please. Thank you. With new media from the China Media Group, we would like to know that why in Jing-Jin-Ji, as well as some key areas, there would be phase-out projects for the outdated or old diesel vehicles. We will have DG Sun to take your question. Thank you for your question. To accelerate the treatment and the phase-out of the certain diesel vehicles is a priority in Jing-Jin-Ji area. To phase out such old model vehicles are designed to achieve the following purposes. The first is the air pollution. As you know, in Beijing, Tianjin, and Hebei, there's a large number of such outdated models of diesel vehicles. They cause a big problem for air pollution. For example, each of such vehicle emits 10 times of the pollutants compared with the average vehicles. So, by phasing out these vehicles, we can reduce the pollutants and improve the air. Second, we are pushing forward the industrial upgrading for new energy vehicles in China. It is developing very fast with diversified new models. So for the old models, diesel trucks, they can be replaced by the new models and new energy vehicles. So by doing so, by having these phase out, we can accelerate the upgrading, and also these phase out can help us to tap the potential of vehicle consumption and improve confidence in the auto market and facilitate the sound growth of the market. On March the 31st, the executive meeting of the State Council has decided that the central budget will provide financial incentives to encourage such phase-out. The Ministry of Finance will work with the sister agencies to come up with specific implementation details. Okay, we can only allow 2 more questions due to